Good afternoon, everyone. I, C. Emily Day, on behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee ICI, welcome all the participants in today's webcast Mastering Team Meetings, a skillful path to collaboration and results. I welcome to today's resource person CA Onam Agrawal and others present over here. Now, moving forward, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, CA Onam Agrawal, a professional who brings together the precision of a chartered accountant, the strategic mind of a lawyer, and the clarity of a business advisor. CA Onam Agrawal, as founder of One Stop Consultants and Services LP, leads the structuring and regulatory setup of alternative investment funds. She is the go-to advisor for HNIs, fund managers, family offices, real estate developers, and corporates venturing into the AIF space. She also specializes in FDI and ODI transactions under FEMA. She started her career with the Big Four at Deloitte and later contributed her expertise at PNGRB, which is Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. CA Onam Agrawal is an alumni of Sri Ram College of Commerce, Delhi University, India's undisputed number one commerce college, with just 250 seats in undeserved category. Apart from this, she's on a mission to reinstate 1 lakh women who have taken career breaks return to the workforce. She is a firm believer of happiness and karma. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Millie, for such a generous introduction. I'm very glad to be back on the webcast with yet another session on mastering the art of team meetings. I'll start with sharing my presentation. Millie, is my presentation visible? If you can just
Yes,
tell
yes,
me.
ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. So I'll just give a short introduction of myself after Millie's generous introduction. So myself, CA Onam Agarwal. I specialize in FEMA compliances, particularly FDI and ODI. But parallel to my corporate practice, I empower professionals with the soft skills that make hard results possible. So my journey from the foundational years at Deloitte and PNGRB to now running my own practice has taught me one thing, that you are as good as you communicate. And in today's time, meetings meetings comprise a major part of this communication. Now, most of you will agree on that, whether you are in job or you are in practice, you are working with the MNC or you're working with a mid-sized firm, you will agree that we spend so much of our time on meetings. Whether you're meeting with your bosses or you are the team leader and you are guiding your team, or you are meeting with your clients. So, since meetings occupy such a large portion of our time, it's very imperative that we make them productive. And that is why today's session is deliberately very practical. So, we are going to move beyond the theory of effective meetings and we'll move on to those meetings that actually bring results and action. But before starting with my whole session, I'll ask you a question. We as chartered accountants, when it comes to our psychology and when it comes to our evaluation, what is the one thing that we all have in common? So I'm not talking about our knowledge of Indias. I'm not talking about our knowledge of MS Excel, nor am I talking about our knowledge of tax section numbers. Our real superpower is calculating ROI, return on investment, for almost everything, and seriously everything. I'll prove it to you how. Now imagine someone invites you over for dinner. Now, what will a normal person say? Okay, sure, let's go. But how does a CA's brain go? He'll think paneer tikka, quality, divided by the time it will take me to reach the venue, and then he'll decide whether it's worth it or not. So his decision is based on the ROI of him going out for that dinner. Imagine you have an invite for a marriage function. That's my scenario number two. Now, if you have to go for a marriage function, it will be a full valuation exercise for you. You don't just attend, you actually calculate gift shagun itna jayega, divided by the buffet के कितना variety होने वाला है, plus my networking opportunity, and divided by the risk of moving into aunties who are going to press you for getting married. We all do that evaluation, don't we? And if that IRR is positive, that's the only time we go. Think about vacations. Now, other people, they will enjoy the mountain view. But what do we do? We enjoy the spreadsheet of expenses, room tariff, 3 nights, GST. GST, we definitely check whether the GST charge is correct or not. And the hidden charges, whether they have put a service charge or not, whether they have put GST on the service charge or not. We do all these things. So all the time, we are calculating ROI. And only if that ROI is positive, only if the return on investment is positive, we take one step forward, not just in our professional lives, but even in our personal lives for every go to decisions. So basically, as a community, we are calculating ROI for almost everything except the biggest time consuming monster that we have in our lives. Yes, I am talking about meetings. Meetings that we have, do we ever calculate the ROI for them? Have we ever thought that what is the value of a meeting? Have you ever given it a thought from this perspective? What's the worth of a meeting? Have you ever thought of that? Just a second. I think my laptop is hanging. Give me a moment, please. Emily, if you can help me out, is my screen visible? Okay, okay. Yes. So I was, Hemil, is my screen visible? Okay. So we were calculating, we were evaluating, we were analyzing that have we ever calculated the ROI of our meetings? Now think about it. Daily meetings, weekly meetings, 2 minute meetings. Can we jump on a quick call meetings? Meetings would start with, okay, we are not going to take that much time. But by the end of the week, you'll realize that we spend more time in meetings than we actually spend time in doing our work, correct or not? So we have been evaluating our going to marriages, our going out for dinner, our going out for movies, our going out for vacations, but we are 10 people who sit for an hour. We never even ask that what's the return? What's the outcome? Why are we even here? And that's exactly why this topic matters today. Because when you look at it like a chartered accountant, a meeting is an investment. Every minute is counting. Every participant is bringing in his salary, and every discussion has a value. So the most important question becomes, what's the worth of a meeting? Now, most of us attend so many meetings in a week that we don't even question this anymore, that what's the cost of a meeting. They are not an hour on our calendar, they occupy a major chunk. So let's calculate the worth of a meeting just like a CA would with an ROI formula. So if you have to calculate the real cost of a typical team meeting, let's imagine that there's a room with four assistant managers, each earning a CTC of 12 lakhs. Their hourly cost comes out to, 577 rupees. So together, four of them, they will be 2,308 per hour. Now add to this two seniors who are earning 18 lakhs, that's their CTC. So their hourly rate comes out to 865 rupees. So that's another two of them, so 1,730 rupees. And then there's a manager with a 24 lakh CTC, and his cost is 1,154 per hour. And of course, the articles, earning 15,000 a month. So that's roughly 866 an hour because they attend every meeting anyway. So when you add all of this up, the total cost of that 1 hour meeting comes out to almost 5,300 rupees. So understand this, that before the meeting has even started, you are going to burn 5,300 rupees, that's for sure. And if the meeting has no agenda, no clarity, no outcomes, so this expense is actually going down a drain. So it's very imperative that we make our meetings productive. So if you are burning roughly 5,000 rupees every single hour of a meeting, then we have to ask a simple CA style question, that what's the minimum return this meeting should generate? Now, I'm not taking a normal good return of 10 to 15% that any businessman expects. I'm taking a very, very conservative return of 5%. So even if I'm taking a 5% return that a businessman or an industry needs to earn, then the meeting must create a value of at least 1 lakh rupees. That's 5,000 divided by 5%. Then the meeting must create a value of at least 1 lakh rupees. And in practical terms, what this comes out to be is that you are either adding a client through that meeting, which will fetch you a fees of 1 lakh rupees, or you are able to save 1 lakh rupees with this meeting, or you're able to prevent a loss of 1 lakh rupees, or you're able to at least have 1 lakh rupees in an increase of efficiency. So either ways, this meeting should generate a value of at least 1 lakh rupees. And if it's not doing that, it's an expensive hour wasted. Don't you think things become so interesting when you quantify them? Has any one of you ever looked at meetings with this perspective, that meetings actually have a cost? And honestly, if we calculate, this kind of ROI for most of our meetings, a big chunk of them is gonna be a non-performing asset. True true NPS with high exposure, zero recovery. So the next question is that if we all understand that meetings are so expensive, then why most of them are still bad? Why do expensive hours produce such bad outcomes? So now we are going to look at something we all relate to. That what makes a meeting look bad? Why does a meeting turn back when the organization is spending such time, resources, venue? There's a room book, there's a peon there, there's refreshment coming. So if the organization is pitching in a lot of resources, then why does it turn out to be bad? And trust me, the list is long, universal, and slightly painful too. Now, most of you are in the meetings already. So you can all feel the pain. And you may even laugh also because At some point of time, you will feel that I am the one who's inflicting this pain on my team peers. So let's have a look at why do meetings turn bad? A team member may say that every time I try to speak, someone either cuts me off or the topic suddenly moves on as if I didn't even exist. And it makes me think that why am I even here? I should just sit quietly and nod. So that feeling, if you're harboring that feeling, it makes a meeting bad for that person. Another thing that makes it bad is when you get the feeling कि इससे अच्छा तो mail ही कर देते. I mean, if you've got us all ready, you've synced our calendars, you've paused our work for this. If this was the meeting agenda, you could have very simply mailed it to us. What was the need of calling us all over here? Another feeling that a lot of people get is that it's a one-way meeting. It's not a meeting, it's a podcast with a live studio audience. And we're all just listening to one person who's talking while the rest of us could be replaced by cardboard clients also. So you feel like you're just sitting there just to listen to that person. Another reason. So let me know if you're resonating with all of these points. So another reason why a meeting becomes bad is that the meeting becomes very long. It has stretched beyond the limit of human attention span. And if that meeting is stretching beyond that, it's not going to be entering the minds of the participants. So my tea is cold, my brain is fried, and I'm honestly thinking of all the productive work that I could have been doing when the meeting expands beyond a limit. So that makes a meeting turn out so bad. Even though it started on a good note, the meeting went nicely, but if you're extending it to a very long time, it can look out to be very unproductive. Another similar point is when a few people are dominating. So we talked about it was a one way. That was one person, the speakers are dominating. So within the speakers also, if a few of them are dominating, it makes the meeting sour. It's not a very pleasant experience for those who are attending it. Another reason is when you don't have a clear purpose. We are sitting there, but there's no agenda, no clarity, no direction, and it feels like we are just floating. We don't know where the meeting is going. So there's no direction to the meeting. Another reason is when we feel that it's just a meeting and nothing is going to get implemented. So it's all talking, 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 talking. And you know that after the meeting, nothing is going to happen. So even before the meeting has started, it has turned bad. What's the decision making process? So a lot of times it happens in the meetings that everyone is speaking, everyone is arguing, but nobody knows that who actually decides. It's just the discussion which is going on, and nobody is taking a lead to summarize, to give a conclusion to those arguments, and decide that what is the final take on this discussion. So you leave the room confused. And who's responsible? Who's approved? What are we doing next? We don't know. So it's basically like a movie with a no ending. So that makes the meeting turn bad again. So now all these points, my point is dismissed. They should have emailed us. It's very long. All these complaints, they are not complaints. They are the everyday feelings of a good, hardworking employee who want the meetings to work, but they are feeling either stuck or unheard or drained. Excuse me. Yeah. So they are feeling drained with these meetings. And that is why these meetings are feeling like NPAs. NPAs, why? Because they are emotionally draining to the employees and they're financially draining to the organization. But if you clearly look, all these points are the side of the team. These are the frustrations of the team. But let's have a look at the flip side also. So you are attending a meeting and you are having all these frustrations. I get that. But have you ever stepped into the shoes of the person who is actually organizing or leading a meeting? What are his frustrations? Because understand, if you want to make a meeting successful, you must know that how does the opposite party also feel? If it's bad for you, the meeting was bad for him or her as well. So what made it bad for you, you know. But what made it bad for the opposite party, that's equally relevant to make a meeting productive. Now, a lot of time, the leader's frustrations, they begin with the fact that people are defending themselves instead of discussing. So every conversation feels like a battle to him. So what a leader generally is trying to say is he is trying to discuss, and he's not attacking anyone. He just wants to solve the problem. And it's very exhausting when every suggestion it kind of becomes a defense match. Why didn't you file the ITRs on time? And a defense comes on top of it. Now he is trying to bring a solution out of the situation. He's not attacking you in any way. Another frustration of the leader is that he has to repeat himself again and again. Am I not being clear? Or are they not listening? And saying the same thing in every meeting, it makes him feel very invisible. So if a leader is not being heard, it can have a big dent on his own credibility. So he is there to not to babysit. He's there to lead. And he needs a team that can actually absorb and which is not waiting to be reminded again and again. So think from his angle. If you had to remind your junior for a work again and again, how would you feel? Something which has been discussed in the meeting by a leader, he expects you to do that. But if he has to remind you again and again for that, again, it's a big dent on him. Another frustration of the leader could be when nobody is taking ownership of the action items. So he feels like सारा बोझ मुझी पे है. I have to carry the team on my shoulders. So if the deadline slips, or if there's accountability, or somehow everything is just circling back to him. And he doesn't want to micromanage. He is leading a team. He wants to delegate some of his work and he wants his team to take ownership of some action items. But if he doesn't get that in the meeting, it's very frustrating for him. Another feeling which leaders harbor when a meeting is going on is that they are getting a lot of silent nods. Silent nods. So the team is sitting there, the leader is saying something, and the leader is scared that what does a silent nod mean? Does it mean agreement? Does it mean disagreement? At least disagree, because that means you are thinking. So this silent nod is basically indifference. He doesn't get to know what the team is thinking. Another thing which happens and which feels leaders feel is when they spend too much time on the irrelevant details. So when a meeting is planned and a meeting is conducted, it must be super micro focused. And in case you are delving into unnecessary details, he doesn't have time for it. So don't get into unnecessary details. If you're doing that, you are disturbing the decorum and the timing of the meeting. And that's very irritating to the team leader. Yes, this is one thing which of late has started a lot. Meeting etiquette. With the advent of online meetings, meeting etiquettes has become very important. Most of the juniors, they sit with their cameras off while the team leader is sitting with their camera on. It's very irritating to him because if he is pitching in the time to get ready for a meeting, you must too. So there are etiquettes around late loggings, side conversations, your phones are buzzing. So all these meeting etiquettes, they show respect for the team. If you are not respecting a meeting, you are not respecting the team because everyone has pitched in their time. Leaders have another frustration that meetings are eating up a major part of the day. And they have a feeling that by the end of the day, I have only attended meetings and I have not been able to do my actual work. So they feel that their productivity is actually held hostage. and they don't have time to think, rethink, strategize. They are missing this thing. And that is why they want their teams, which I said before, to take action, to lead on some of the action tasks. Another frustration is when the team is not prepared. So, if it's a brainstorming meeting and your leader has asked you to come up with new marketing ideas or new ideas to tap clients, and you come up unprepared, so how does it feel? Think how would a leader feel? He has given his time and the team is not ready to spend their energy on the meeting. Again, it's very frustrating for him because he wants a team that comes ready. If he is coming ready for a meeting, he wants his team to come ready as well. And because of all these things, you know what happens? This these frustrations of the team, this frustration of the leaders, what eventually happens is that the leaders they feel unheard, they feel drained, and they feel themselves constantly repeating. And it's not a personal frustration. Slowly, it becomes a pattern. It becomes a culture. It becomes a ripple. You understand a ripple effect? A drop in the middle, and then it spreads around the entire water in circles. That's what it becomes, a ripple effect. Because a leader's frustration does not stay in his chair itself, it leaks into the team and slowly into his decisions as well. And eventually, it's the organization which is paying the price for it. Which brings me to my next topic. What's the cost of a bad meeting? It's a big time ripple effect. Because when a team walks out confused, demotivated, and disconnected, the leader can sense it. And the leader feels that he has lost his credibility and authority. And when he feels he has lost his credibility and authority, he is not able to give his best, which results in a financial loss to the organization. Come to the second effect. When the team feels they have an increased workload or their stress is too much, what do they do? They are either giving up their hands or they are not ready to work. And as a result of that, all the goals, all the targets, all the budgets that had been set, they are missed. Or if the team is feeling very stressed, they're going to be making mistakes. So there is inefficient execution. And what does it result into again? It results into an reputational damage for the organization as well as financial loss to the organization. Effect number three, if the team does not feel heard, if it does not feel included, there is an erosion of trust. They don't feel like they belong to that organization. So what do? Again, they don't feel part of that organization. They don't trust the organization anymore, which results in a managerial drag. He has to pitch a lot of effort to make them feel part of the organization, but that doesn't work. And eventually, it results in the talent drain and stifled innovation. Talent drain, how you're going to be leaving the organization, and stifled innovation. So you're just sitting there in the organization with no inputs and just working like a computer with uh, whatever input is given to you, whatever instruction to give is given to you. So you feel suffocated. So it's a whole ripple effect, you see. If and it's not by virtue of one team meeting. So it's a pattern in a team meeting. In case most of your team meetings are going like that, it's the pattern which is created and which creates this effect in the minds of the people, the leaders, and results in damage to the organization. But this is all about bad meetings. What does a bad meeting feel like? How does it cost? What's the importance of a bad? What's the importance of meeting? We've understood that. But just close your eyes for a moment and let's flip the lens and remember what is the one good meeting that you had. So we've talked about painful meetings, how meetings can be painful, how meetings can hurt you, how meetings can be boring, they can be draining. But think of a meeting that actually made you feel good. What was so special in that meeting that you still remember it till date? Has there ever been such a meeting? Or have all your meetings been the bad ones? Don't tell me that. I'm sure we are all lucky enough that sometime or the other we do get a good leader who manages to pull off a meeting. So this meeting need not be a work meeting. It could even be a meeting in your college. Any meeting. Just try to recall a good meeting that you had and what was so special about that meeting. So take a moment to think about it because I want you to hold that thought of being in a good meeting. Because that feeling when you had a productive meeting is very good because that actually yielded results. So, what makes a meeting meaningful, energizing, productive? I'm sure these are some of the points which must have come to your mind that I felt very hurt. I felt heard, not hurt. I felt heard. I felt energized after the meeting. I felt like, yes, I'm going to be doing this task after this meeting is over. You went out with that emotion. You felt part of a team. You felt you were part of the decision making. You were part of the execution. You felt part of the team. That's the feeling that you got after the meeting. That's what a good meeting feels like. You felt you were well prepared. So your preparation paid off. So if you are well prepared and you execute it well, that can make a meeting feel very good. Whereas if you were prepared and the execution was lacking, it would not make you feel good. Another thing could be if the meeting was super focused on the agenda. So you came with the intent of maybe finalizing the design of your new product launch. So you had four options and you ended the meeting with actually finalizing your product design. So you were super focused on the agenda and you were not focused on any other thing that maybe these four designs are not good and we could think of more designs. So a meeting which is super focused on the agenda, it leaves a good impact on the minds of the people. You had actual conversations during the meeting. Has anyone ever had that? When you got a chance to actually have a conversation and bring out what you feel like. Actual conversations make you feel like a team, like you are heard. Clear agenda. So, one is being super focused on the agenda. Another good way to make meeting a success is a clear agenda where everyone knows that this is the agenda. So it's like telling you that this is the target and you got to be running towards that. But if there's no target, where are you all going to be running? Another good feeling for a good meeting is when you have clarity on what to do next. So agenda is the planning part. What do we plan for the meeting? But after the end of the meeting, if you have clarity on what you're going to be doing next, you feel energized. You feel energized because you know where to take the next step. If a meeting has a very positive environment and there is no blame game going on, nobody is blaming, not even the leadership, not even the peers amongst each other. It feels like a good meeting, isn't it? If there's only leadership and no domination, another important aspect to having a good meeting, if the leader is behaving like a leader and not a Hitler, that whatever I say is final, that results into a good meeting. And if it's a two-way meeting, cherry on the top, that you are a good leader and you're allowing conversations. It's a two-way flow which is going on. It makes a meeting a great success. But creating a culture, pulling off a good meeting is not easy, because creating a culture of good meetings is not a one-time event. It's not a checklist. It's not that, oh, we tried it once and now everything will magically improve. No, no. This requires pulling off good meetings requires a consistent effort. It needs to be in the minds of leadership and the team every single day. It must be built into your SOPs, just like you have SOPs to how to approach a client who wants to do ODI. What's the ready checklist that you have to ask a client when an ITR is to be filed? Just like that, pulling off good meetings has to be inbuilt in your SOPs, and it has to be reinforced in your behaviors. It's not a task, it's a culture. Because a good meeting actually reflects how the organization thinks, how the organization communicates, and how it respects time. And when leaders take meetings seriously, teams actually transform. And I think Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are great examples who have managed to pull off team meetings and who have managed to bring their organizations to a great structure, because they focus on their team meetings very minutely. So let's make this a reality now. Let's bring out some simple things how to make a team meeting good. We have 5 rules to make a meeting good, and the rule one is very simple, the 2-minute rule. So, when a meeting is being planned, the first thing is what should be the agenda of the meeting? What should we include in the meeting? There are so many things to talk about, so many things to discuss, so many topics to be updated, so many feedbacks to be taken from the team. So, what all should be included in the agenda of a meeting? Now, this is something which has to, rule number one is to be followed before the meeting. It says it's a 2-minute rule, very simple elimination rule, which says if a piece of information can be shared or if a decision can be made in 2 minutes. So you can share information over an email, done and dusted, or you can share a decision under 2 minutes, done and dusted. If it's a matter of 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes, it has no business being inside the meeting. Let me give you an example. So, suppose you are running a mid sized firm, and a lot of discussions happen in the meeting. And I myself have witnessed this, that the leaders ask that, has the client sent the bank confirmation? So, a meeting is going on, and he is asking me, has the client sent the bank confirmations? Yes, sir, I received it yesterday. Okay, that's it. A short two-liner discussion that we had. But it was 20 seconds of information. And why are we discussing this in a 45-minute meeting? Because in this one instance, the whole team is thinking, have I received the bank confirmations from my client? So you see, just because of a simple information sharing, the focus of the meeting has gone towards bank confirmations, whereas this could have been inquired over an email as well. This could have been inquired after the meeting. The meetings are not designed to ask for simple informations. Or another thing which generally happens is teams spent a lot of time during their meetings debating, actual debating that, should he call the client or should she call the client? And then they're discussing that Arjun did it the last time, so maybe Ria can do it this time. So mostly articles, they are doing this thing that they are discussing and debating their internal rant in the meetings. But let me tell you, These are simple 2 minute decisions where the leader has to delegate that you are doing this, you are not doing this, you are doing this, you are not doing this, which have to be simply delegated, and they have no place in meetings. You just assign it and move on. That too, not in a meeting, but either over a mail or in a simple handout that you give every day in the morning. So, such under 2 minute discussions, they have no place in a meeting. I remember um, a data exchange which was happening in the meetings of the CA firm where I first worked with. And my senior asked me to send the depreciation schedule. So when he asked me to send the depreciation schedule, I wondered why is this even in a meeting? It's not in a meeting agenda. It's not strategic. It's not collaborative. It's not admin work. I'll share it on WhatsApp. I'll share it in an email and it'll be done. But what was the need of bringing it up in the meeting? Not because he's blaming me or something, because it wasted time and it digressed the thought process of the team as well as the leaders. Because after he asked me for the depreciation schedule, we all started talking about the depreciation rates and how they have changed and which one to apply. Because one of my fellow articles, he had the manufacturing company running on a three shift. So the whole discussion was changed. So the truth is that meetings, they become long, boring, and draining because we drag so many 2 minute items into our 30-minute discussion. Now, 30 minutes is not a very long time and it's not a very short time. So you need to be pretty focused on what you need to include in those 30 minutes. So a good meeting, it's not about talking more. It's about talking only those things which need collaboration, analysis, or real time decision making. So, if you apply this rule, you'll see that the moment you remove these 2 minute items, you chuck them off your agenda, your meeting suddenly becomes focused, sharp, and worthy of everyone's time. And this rule must be followed even during the meeting. So, even though a particular item is not in the agenda, in case it's coming up during the meeting and you feel that it's a 2 minute item, chuck it off and move to the next one. We move to the next rule, which is rule number two, which again has to be followed before the meeting. So, a good meeting takes a lot of good planning. So, after following rule one, the 2 minute rule, we have eliminated what shouldn't be in our meeting. And we have made our meetings laser focused on those issues which require collaboration, analysis, and real time decision making. Keep these three things in mind. So, next is that what should be in the meetings. We know what shouldn't be in the meetings, but what about what should be in the meetings? And that's why this is my favorite rule, because crafting the agenda of a meeting is indeed a very sharp task. You need a good leader to craft the agenda of a meeting. So, the rule number two says begin with the end in mind. Now, most meetings fail because people they walk in with an agenda. They don't walk in with an outcome. An agenda it tells you what you will be talking about, but an outcome tells you why you are talking about it. And every meeting should start with three questions. What decision needs to be made today? Like I said before, we will be finalizing the product design today. What specific decision we need to make today in this meeting? This should be in the minds of the leader before the meeting. Secondly, what action plan we must commit to. So even before the meeting has started, he must know that if I'm taking option number one, what's the action plan I got to commit to? What if I'm taking decision number two? What's the action plan I'm going to commit to? He doesn't wait for the decision to be taken place. He knows that if my decision is taken in the meeting itself, I must know where to direct my team, how to direct my team, what work should be given to my team. That's action. The leader must plan that what action plan we have to commit to. The third one is what specific problem are we trying to resolve? Resolution. So before the meeting has even begin, he must know that what problem are we trying to solve through this meeting. So when I talk about the product design, my whole my product introduction into the market is stopped, is halted because my product design is not finalized. My whole sourcing is halted because my product design is not finalized. So that's the problem that we are trying to resolve, and a leader must know that. Let's take an example to explain this. Say we have a meeting to talk about the group reporting errors. You know, those months when the consolidation pack, it looks like it was prepared by four persons from four different corners of India, you know. So a consolidation work had to be done. There were companies which had to be consolidated, and the group report has been prepared, and it has a lot of errors. And the meeting starts. What does a leader generally say? This group reporting is terrible, and we really need to discuss the errors. Doesn't it mostly start like that? Now, that's not a meeting, that's group attacking. So everyone will share their feelings, their frustrations, their stories. And after 40 minutes, nothing concrete is going to be coming up. Everyone is just sharing what problems they faced, what happened, why this happened, why there was a difference in the methodology adopted by A as compared to B. But do you know how a good leader would approach such a situation? A good meeting would sound like, so the objective today is to identify the root cause of the repeated consolidation errors and create a simple three-step SOP or a three-step fix to eliminate the recurrence. Let me come over it with it again. The objective today, we are talking about the decision part. The objective today is to identify the root cause of the repeated consolidation errors. Decision and create a simple three-step fix. Action. He's telling the team what action needs to be taken on this to eliminate its reoccurrence in the next client or even the same client next year. That's resolution. What problem are we trying to solve? So you see, a good meeting or a good agenda incorporates these three elements of DAR: decision, action, resolution. And just like that, he gives the feeling to the team that we know where to go now. We have a direction. And they're not just reviewing mistakes, they are solving a problem. Their conversation has a purpose now. And not just a purpose, but even a boundary and an end goal. So instead of just becoming noise, it has become a purposeful discussion of how to resolve this problem. Another problem that we've all faced: audit delays. We prepare that IDR, initial data request, and then we write in the columns to be provided, to be provided, to be provided. And then we have the data which is provided by the client, and some data, some checking which you need to do. So the villain is generally the prepared by the client list, because so many things are missing in that. Sometimes there's a missing sample, there's the aging schedule which is not updated, and the whole audit is blowing up because of these small, small missing things. But how do we generally see that our leaders are approaching such a stage when the client is not providing the data? And the meeting start with, let's talk about the pending list. What all the client has not provided us. Correct? Most of the meetings start like this when they say that we have not been giving the data, and let's start with what's pending, let's tick what's been received, and then we'll discuss about the pending list. Talk about the list. Now, talking is not moving. If you really want to move an audit, you need to get into action. And in order to turn this update meeting into a good one, you must start by saying that by the end of this meeting, we are going to finalize three things. One, that who is following up on each provided by client PBC item. So you've set responsibilities. Arjun, Riya, Sakshi, Divya, you are following up on these client items and you allocate individual ones to them, not to a group. Second, you talk about what was the deadline that the client had actually committed to, and what should we escalate in case those deadlines slip. So you see, instead of open-handedly approaching what was pending, you fix responsibilities, you take a decision, you put an action, you put them into action, that who is responsible for each of these PBC items. And that's how you actually make a meeting fruitful, because your team is going to move out by knowing that, okay, this is the deadline which the client has set. I am responsible for these PBC items. I'm going to be following up on these. And in case it's slipping out of the deadlines, we are going to escalate this. So now the team knows what they're actually walking away with. So people, when you take meetings like this, people don't just give updates. They start taking ownership. They know that I am responsible for the revenue recognition part, so I have to complete all aspects of the sales. And instead of feeling stuck, the team actually pushes the audit forward because they own their part. And that's how a meeting becomes productive and not painful. So, when you begin with the end in mind, people don't come to the meeting to explore. They come to finish what they were assigned, because they know whether they need to decide, or they need to plan, or they need to solve. And once you do this, a very simple and very interesting thing happens. You realize that you don't need as many people in the room, because to whom are you going to be allocating this PBC list? You know that. So you will be calling those persons to the meeting only. So what are you doing? First, you eliminate those topics which don't have room in the meeting. You eliminate them. Then you see what has to be included in the meeting. And now we are coming to the third rule. Once the outcome is clear, and once you know that it's actually working, you need to know that whose name has to be in the CC, who has to be in the CC list, who needs to be called to the meeting, because calling less means not getting the best of inputs, and calling a lot means that you have created unnecessary noise in the meeting. And you don't need those people who are just sitting there and smiling for 1 hour. So let's move on to the rule number three. For a good meeting, a very essential point is right sizing. Not everyone is required in the meeting. and the wrong kind of people are going to be slowing it down. So, who really needs to be in a meeting? Now, again, this is a before rule. So, this real rule needs to be applied even before the meeting has started. So, what does it say? That you have eliminated the things and now you know what's your decision, your action, and resolution. So, unless you have this DAR ready, this right sizing cannot be done. So, how to save your team from unnecessary Zoom suffering is only three people, only these people need to be included in the meeting. Only these people who fit these three criterias, they need to be included in the meeting. The first one is accountable. You remember how I told you Arjun, Riya, Sakshi, Divya, they are going to be allotted the different parts of the PBC list. So invite them to the meeting. You don't need to be calling your first year articles because they will not be taking responsibility for the PBC list. It's the second year articles who will be doing that. So skip the first year articles because that's unnecessary noise because they have no role in being accountable for the work that is in your agenda today. So the accountable ones, the people who own the outcome. And if a meeting fails, if the client list, if the client data is not received, you can hold Arjun Divya, Sakshi Divya responsible that why the data has not been received. They are accountable for that one. So if a decision has to be made, they have the authority. They can tell you that the deadline has been skipped and we can escalate the matter. They have the authority over this. So this group, the accountable part is generally very small. And mostly for an audit team, it will comprise of a manager who's owning the audit timeline or a senior who is owning the whole work stream, like the revenue, FA, inventory part. So they are generally the ones who are accountable for a result. And if there is no one accountable, honestly cancel the meeting because whom are you going to be resting the meeting on to? You came here to take a decision and list out the action plan. And if there is no one who is responsible or accountable for that action plan, it's not a meeting. You just send out an email to them. That's what is required. Because that way you are just giving the updates. You are not making decisions. So simply mail them because there's no one accountable eventually. You just give them a blanket action list that this is what we are going to be doing now. But if you want to make a good meeting out of it, you definitely need to have those persons who are accountable for a particular item. The second way to right size your attendance list or the second participant in your attendance list should be the participant. Those people who contribute actively, like I said, the second year articles in this scenario, who are going to be obtaining the data from the client because they don't just attend, they add value because that associate or that article has worked on the testing and he has the details that what are the flaws in the testing or what are the practical challenges when they were conducting the control testing that they faced. Or the article who has prepared the schedules, he knows where the client is faltering or the accountant doesn't have that much knowledge or the accountant joined midway in the organization and that's why he is not privy to all the to all the information which is causing a stuck up in preparation of schedules. Or the senior who knows what are the client constraints. And if there is no one who can contribute and it's just a team of persons who are accountable, then that's not a meeting for discussion, real time decisions, or collaboration. It's just an update meeting within the seniors. So there's no participant and you're all an audience. And what is a team of seniors going to do if they don't have their participants, the people who are actually working in the audit? You need to have those participants which have really worked on the audit. So that's my attendance list number two, participants. Next is your expert. Now, there could be a matter where you need an expert advice and a special appearance is required. So they join for 5 to 10 minutes maybe give a technical view or a quality review note or a tax perspective or a data clarification, anything, like bringing in an IND-AS expert to answer a few of your queries on revenue recognition. And then you let them leave. Please don't keep them hostage for another hour. Or you have a doubt on IT testing, that will this risk be covered by my IT testing team? So you call them in, you discuss the point that was in your agenda. And then you know whether it falls under your purview or their purview. So you call in an expert, and that's the third person you have in your meeting. What's left? Terminate. T stands for terminate because these are the names that you need to terminate from your invitee list. Now, who are these people? These people are generally those who just listen, or those people who don't influence or they don't own the work. Or thirdly, people who join just because in the last meeting also they were joined. They had joined. So one article or one AM who had last worked on the project. You don't need his you don't need him to be in the meeting. If you want his perspective, take it before the meeting or let your current assistant manager have a discussion with him in private to know what has changed during the year. But he is not required in the whole team meeting. Or people who cause more noise than value. Or they could be people who show up, but they should actually be doing the work. Or it could be those persons who are there to create more of a nonsense. So you need to terminate these people out of your meeting. So before sending out any meeting invite, just ask yourself, does this person fall into my A, accountable, P, participant, or E, expert? Does this person fall into my APE list? Because if it's not, then his spot is marked by T. So now what's happening with this right sizing? The meetings are getting smaller, the decisions are getting faster. Since there are fewer people, they can be heard, so they feel respected, and the productivity shoots up. That's the most important part because just the right brains are there in the meeting and not those who are there to give frivolous comments. So, after terminating the 2 minute topics and after thinking of the end results and after terminating the wrong persons, let's get on to the real meeting. During the meeting, so we had a great meeting. There were a lot of new ideas, decisions were taken, everyone was energized, and then nothing happened. The meeting after meeting begins where people try to figure out that what was actually agreed upon. They don't know. Now, now here I want to share a simple rule to fix this out of the to fix out this forever hanging problem that persons face after a meeting is over. It's called the WWW rule. No, it's not World Wide Web. The WWW rule, it stands for what, who, and when. And at the end of every meeting, you should be able to answer these three questions. What was actually decided? And not what was discussed, but what was the actual decision which was taken? Who is owning this? Number two, who is the person who's accountable or responsible? Not the team, the name of the person who we all will be looking to for this decision. And when is it due? A real date, not soon, next time, shortly, coming up, not these. A real date when it is going to be due. And let me show you how this works. So, how to actually put this into a meeting? So, instead of saying that we discuss the client report and John will look into some options, you should say that we have finalized the new client report template. So don't talk about the discussion, we discussed it. What did you do actually? You finalized the new client report template. Sarah is responsible for it. or Mohit is responsible for it, whosoever is responsible for it. And by what time is that person responsible? By next Friday, say 12 December, or whatever be the date. So set a date also, set a time also. And this isn't just about being organized, it's about being respectful also. Because by following this what, who, when time frame, you know what decision, what timeline, and who's responsible for it. So this WWW, it makes the outcomes very clear, and it makes the follow through also very clear. Because if on 20, say on 12 December, you want to follow up whether Ria or Divya, they have actually circulated this format report to everyone. They have finalized the format report, created a draft out of it, and shared it with everyone. You know who to hold, whose ears to hold. It's Divya's ear you need to go to. So that's rule number 4. And now, with the last rule, the ending. The perfect way to make sure that your WWW is always clear is that always end with a recap and the next steps. So, we are talking about the last 5 minutes of the meeting because this part is often rushed or it's often skipped because everyone is desperate to leave. It's been a meeting and they all want to leave the meeting, but without this recap, everyone is going to be leaving the room with a different version of what has just happened. It will be like Chinese whispers. You start with one thing and you end with one thing. So, as the meeting leader, your last job is to be the editor. You stand up and you get everyone's attention and you say, okay, let me quickly recap our key takeaways before we finish. And this is not a full replay, it's just the headlines only news. So you simply state, these are the key 3 decisions which have been taken, and these are the immediate steps that we need to take. So these are magical things. These help to catch up with the last minute misunderstandings which anyone may have had. And it also sends out to the people very clear, confident, and knowing exactly what they need to do. So they don't need to wonder, they don't have to guess. They know that they started the meeting with a purpose, they have an action list, and they are ending with this action list that falls into them. So, quickly, summarizing the 5 rules. Rule number 1, the 2-minute rule. If a decision can be made in 2 minutes without a meeting, it shouldn't be in it. That's the reason number 1. Rule number 2, begin with the end in mind. Define the desired outcome in advance. Decision: 80% of a meeting's success is determined before it even begins. There's the decision, there's the action, and there's the resolution. Rule number 3, right sizing the attendance list. You invite only those who are essential and ask what's their role. Do be there. The APE format: accountable, participant, and expert, and you terminate the remaining ones. Rule number 4, assign clear items. What, who, what, when. Every action must have a clear owner and a due date. So, this who will do, what will he do, and by when he will do. That should be crystal clear. And rule number 5, end with a recap and next steps. Conclude the meeting by summarizing the key decisions and clearly outlining the immediate next steps. That's how a successful meeting should end. But again, these are all blanket rules. It's hard to implement these rules. You may have them in mind, but it's hard to implement them because these are more of a culture creating rules. And every day you are facing different scenarios, real scenarios where these rules have to be applied. But they have some deeper issues when we come to typical scenarios. So, I'm going to walk you through a few scenarios and how you should be dealing with them to make a meeting effective. Now, this is from the perspective of both a team attendant, and a team leader. The first scenario is, which generally happens with the audit teams, the never ending planning meeting. Now, picture this, it's the audit planning meeting for a new client, and the client belongs to an industry which is new to you. You have not catered to this industry before. So the lead manager, let's call him Mohit. He's explaining a technical point about revenue recognition. So he starts with the basic principle, then he dives into a specific IFRS standard, and then he's telling a story about how they applied it for a client back in 2017, and now he is speculating on future amendments to this rule. And you are looking at the clock and you are saying that 30 minutes of 1 hour meeting are gone and you haven't even touched the rest of the agenda. Does this sound familiar to you? Because a lot of senior leaders, they have this habit of going into retrospect. That's our challenge for the day. How do you, as a peer, politely but firmly keep the meeting on track without disrespecting a senior colleague? And this happens with a lot of us. Because if you have a senior person in the room, the meeting is likely to digress because they are very fond of storytelling. So, what do you do at that point of time? How do you stop these digressions? And how do you time box our very thorough and very valuable colleagues who have a lot of detail to share? So, we have some simple professional techniques to exactly for such kind of scenario. And these are politely productive tools. So they're polite also, but they're productive also. The first technique is called the parking lot technique. Now, this is your best friend because it respectfully acknowledges the point without derailing the meeting. So, how I would take care of Mohit in such a scenario is um, Mohit, what I would say to him, Mohit, that's a really important point about the future of revenue recognition. And I don't want to lose it, but can we park it in the parking lot so that we can make sure we cover the rest of the planning agenda and we'll come back to it at the end? Did you see what I did? I acknowledge what he's saying when I said that that's a really important point about the future of revenue recognition. And then I said, I don't want to lose it also. Give him all the respect. But can we park it in the parking lot? It's a very polite way of saying. Can we park it in the parking lot so that give him a rationale so that we can cover the rest of the planning agenda? And we'll come back to it at the end. You must assure him of that. And then you wait. So, what does this do? It shows you're listening, it validates their contribution, but it also protects the team's time. And the key is that you must return to the parking lot at the end for 2 minutes to decide if it needs a separate meeting, or if it's a 2 minute item, it can go into an email. So the thing is that you return to the parking lot item definitely at the end, because by that time, that whole therapy and the whole storytelling, it has already gone out of the person. So he is back to the facts. So while his storytelling would have taken 15 minutes earlier, when you resort back to it at the end of the meeting with this parking lot technique, he is not going to be taking more than 2 minutes. So you have politely digressed him. The second trick is also a very subtle one. It's called a decision versus a discussion tracker. Now, this is a visual tool. I see a lot of late, a lot of meetings, you have a whiteboard also, which is kept in the meeting hall, which makes it very lively and it makes it very easy to understand what the persons are saying. So, what you do is at the start of the meeting itself, you draw two columns on a whiteboard, which or if you're working on your laptop, you can have a shared screen and you write discussion on one part and decision on another part. So when you see that a topic is going around in circles, you can point to the board and say, write it down under the column of discussion that this is a great discussion. And to make sure that we capture the outcome, what is the specific decision we need to make here so that we can move it to this column? So you see what I'm doing here? I'll repeat myself again. So what I tell my team is this is a great discussion, but every discussion must have an outcome. So in order to convert this discussion into a specific outcome, what is the particular decision that we are trying to make through this discussion? And just when you do that, the discussion becomes super focused on the outcome. Because every discussion was eventually leading to a decision. It's just that we went round and round. So, to bring us back and to squeeze the circle and stay super focused on our outcome, on our decision, we need to tell that person very subtly that what is the underlying decision that we are trying to make here. So, this forces the conversation from an open ended debate to a concrete, decision oriented close. So, very politely, I have converted or I have diverted endless discussions into decision. So, if you are suffering from a never ending team meeting so this trick can be used by the peers in case there are two assistant managers. One AM can use this technique on the other. In case there are deputy managers, one DM can use it on the other. Or in case there's a senior manager, he can use this technique for the juniors when the discussion is happening. So it's a top to bottom, it's a top down way of actually bringing the meeting to a close. It can also be reverse, provided you have the authority to take up a board to have a discussion and a decision tracker, or you have the authority to actually hold that person and say that line with the parking lot. So, by doing this, you are not being rude with the parking lot, you're just sidelining the important but the off topic thoughts. And with the decision tracker, you are visually guiding the conversations to a close. So I love using the discussion and decision tracker on a whiteboard because it creates that visual impact also. So by doing this, I'm not being rude, I'm just becoming a facilitator and I'm respecting everyone's most valuable asset. That's their time. So that was scenario number one. Let's move on to a scenario which most of you will instantly recognize. Yes, we've all been there. The senior partner or the director is in the room and the discussion is flowing and then the boss shares a very strong opinion कि नहीं ये हम ऐसे ही करेंगे and it kind of ends with the classic phrase कि जो बोलता है वो final जो boss बोल रहा है वो final है so even though he is not saying it with his whole tone and whole persona, he is bringing it out that whatever I'm saying is final and you have to accept it. And just like that, the room goes silent and the discussion flatlines. So even if someone has a very crucial piece of data or they have a different perspective, they find it impossible to speak up. So the challenge here is how will you encourage upward communication when the power dynamic it fails to give space? How do you respectfully ensure that all voices are heard, especially when a leader unintentionally is cutting people off? So the leader doesn't know. He's very convinced he's right. So he's not doing it intentionally. He's doing it unintentionally, but he is cutting people off. And this isn't about challenging the authority, it's just about serving the ultimate goal. So, the whole exercise, the trick, the tips that I'm going to be sharing with you of how to deal with such a situation, it's about serving the ultimate goal, the goal of making the best decision. And for that, we need every piece of information on the table. So here are two gentle but very powerful techniques to deal with such a situation when your boss is just not giving you space to speak up. First is the respectful rewind technique. So, we don't have to contradict. That you already know. You don't contradict. You build. You're not saying you are wrong, I am right. You're adding on to. You add context. You don't conflict. So if the boss says the client will never agree to a fee increase this quarter, let's drop it. You don't say you're wrong. What do you say? Sir, I understand your point about the client's current mindset. If I may, could I just add the data point we gathered from the last conversation? So, first hand, you're not contradicting. You are adding something which is not in his knowledge currently, but it's in your knowledge because you were working on the client. So you say that they mentioned being particularly impressed with our turnover time on the last audit. Perhaps we could frame the increase around the perceived value of the reduced time it took them for audit, because that directly converts into their staff being busy with the audit work. So, in case you can add context to what the boss is saying, if you don't contradict him and you take permission for it also. That's a, if I may add, a crucial data point which I gathered during my conversation. Now, this is a valid point that the client has this perceived value that our turnaround time for this audit was way lesser than their previous auditor. It's a valid point to increase the fees. So you see the difference. You have acknowledged their authority when you say that, sir, may I add? And you have also reframed it as a collaborative we question, because you didn't say I could increase the fee. You say perhaps we could frame the increase around the perceived value. You didn't say I feel that we can frame the increase around the perceived value. You say we could frame the increase around the perceived value. So that's the difference that you are making by coming out very politely, bringing a data point, and adding the data point to what that person is saying instead of contradicting it. Because nobody likes contradiction, especially when you are in a position. The second way to counter a situation where the boss is not giving spaces, it's a preemptive strategy called the meeting round robin. You understand round robin, you. Everyone gets a chance. So if you are the meeting facilitator, you can institute this as a standard practice. So if you're the team leader, you appoint one person who will act as the meeting facilitator. And it's a standard practice in your team that all the team meetings, before any decision is made, you say, sir and ma'am, before we finalize, let's do a quick round robin to make sure we haven't missed any blind spots. So let's hear one insight or a potential risk from everyone in the room, starting with the juniors who are closest to the data. I'll repeat myself again. If you're a meeting facilitator, you can initiate a round robin. What you can do is you can ask them, you can ask your leadership that as a standard practice, we introduce the concept of round robin. So you suggest that before we take any decision, we have a round robin of the team, and whatever are the missed blind spots, we will be able to get them. If we ask for their insight, their perspective, or a potential risk that they feel is there. And you start with the juniors because they are the closest to the data. So when you introduce a practice of round robin, it does two things. One, it formally creates space for others to speak. It brilliantly uses hierarchy to your advantage by asking for input from those who are at the most ground level detail, making it more about information than about subordination. So So they feel part of the meeting too because they have been asked. And honestly, these people come out with the best suggestions because they know what's the ground reality of the work which is being taken up. So you're using your hierarchy and bringing out the best out of the people. And you're formally creating space for them to speak. So, so these techniques, they are not just about winning an argument from your boss. They're actually about, so the objective of the whole team meeting has to be that the best decision has to be taken. So they are about winning the right outcome for the client and the firm. And it's about ensuring that the final is as informed and as robust as it can possibly be. And how do you do that? How do you make a decision robust and how do you make an informed decision? When you take information from everyone who is accountable. Don't forget that APE. When you take information from all the APEs of the meeting. So now that I've set the stage for asking the juniors in a round robin, let's come to that junior who never speaks in a meeting. But every junior is precious because he's as costly as he could be. So his salary may be low, but the cost of his mistakes can be high. Correct or not? So I want you to picture a junior accountant in a meeting, and let's call her Priya. She's brilliant. She's done the groundwork, and she has spotted a potential risk in the tax computation that everyone else has missed. But she is surrounded by seniors, by managers, by partners, and the conversation is moving so fast. She is new in the organization. She thinks that maybe I'm wrong and maybe everyone already knows about it. And I don't want to sound stupid. She's new in the organization. She doesn't want to sound stupid. So, what does she do? She stays silent. So, this happens a lot with the first year articles or the junior most in every meeting. It happens a lot with them, especially in the beginning of your career. So, this is our challenge as leaders and as speakers, as team leaders, that how do we create the psychological safety for all the priyas in our team to speak up? How do we get that crucial insight out of her head, onto the table before it actually becomes a costly error? So either the mistake or the error that she has identified, either she has identified it rightly and it can be highly costly to the organization if that mistake hasn't been sealed till now. Or if the mistake that she pointed out is wrong, then she has a fundamental error in her understanding, which needs to be corrected. Otherwise, in the next line, she may make a mistake. So either ways, this needs to be brought out on the table. So the solution to actually bringing out Priya is not to put her on the spot and just outrightly ask her, Priya, what do you think? That can feel like an interrogation. Instead, we must create an environment where speaking up feels safe and expected. So this technique, it need not be applied always. This situation does not arise always, but if it does, these are two, three very powerful techniques that you can do. So I call the first one I may be wrong game. Most of the leaders they start with humility. And when a leader he shows vulnerability, it gives everyone else permission to be human too. So even they feel that okay, we can also make a mistake. So imagine a partner who starts talking about a complex topic and he says, okay, ma'am, okay, team, my initial thought on this accounting treatment was X, but I may be wrong. The standards have changed recently. I really want to hear your perspective on it. So he doesn't say that this is the standard, this is what should be done. I am dead clear on this. If he really wants to bring out the team to speak up, if he really wants to bring that out, he has to create that safe environment. And for this, he can start with humility, where he feels that this particular treatment, he feels initially he had this thought, but it could be wrong. So, this single sentence, it just shatters the myth that leaders are never wrong. It signals that it isn't about hierarchy, it's about finding the right answer together. So, what do? You stop asking vague questions and you start asking such kind of questions, like any questions which often invite silence. From your perspective, where could this plan get stuck? Now, this asks for an operational insight, which they often have more than any one of us. So, if you ask an open ended question to them, they feel more comfortable to talk to. Or you can even ask them, which part of this feels most unclear to you? Now, this makes it feel to admit any confusion that you have, because it shows that there is a genuine ambiguity in this, and there can be there can be scope for not having clarity on this. So the junior will feel safe to speak up. Or you could also say, what support do you need to own this task confidently? So this shows that you are ready to support her through her mistakes. So they will come out with their vulnerabilities, they will come out with their genuine problems, because they know someone is there to handhold them. So by doing this, by asking these open-ended questions like, what do you think? Where could we get stuck? What do you feel is unclear to you? Or what support do you need? By doing this, you're not just being nice, you are actively mining for the hidden risks and the brilliant ideas that are currently trapped in silence. I say both, the hidden risks, because there is a cost to the mistake. And at the same time, I say juniors have brilliant ideas that are trapped in this silence. So we are turning our juniors from passive attendees into active and invaluable contributors. Now, remember the APE list. They are the participants. They had worked on the client. They have good insights. That's why they are part of the meeting. So let's make those participants useful. They are a data mine. Ask them of the risks and of the potentials. Now, this leads me to a opposite problem. An opposite problem where you have too many persons, not few voices, but too many voices, where a meeting is packed with stakeholders, where each one is coming with his own agenda and progress is becoming impossible. How do you manage that? A scenario where you have too many stakeholders. Now, we witness this scenario a lot in a classic audit planning meeting, the audit planning kickoff meeting. So, whether it's virtual or it's in a physical mode, who do you think is there? Too many stakeholders. You have the IT risk manager who's talking about the vulnerabilities and the cybersecurity controls. You have the core statutory audit team also. The managers are there, the seniors are there, and they are super focused on their financial statements, the risks, the audit procedures. And you also have that one person from the HR who is there to discuss the staff allocation, the skill sets, and the budgeting hours. So you have too many stakeholders over here. Three teams. Now, in this case, they don't have conflicting interests, but there can be scenarios where the teams have conflicting interests as well. So, three teams over here, three departments, and three different priorities. So, they may not be conflicting, but their priorities are very different. The HR wants that the minimum of the resources should be allocated. The audit team wants that we should get the maximum resources and we should have the least of the areas. And the IT risk team, it takes part of all the things which are covered in the IT aspect. And the IT risk manager feels that this particular item does not fall in my agenda and the stat audit team needs to cover it. So you see, there's an overlapping and the priorities are very different. They're speaking three different languages. So what happens? The IT manager, he generally starts deep diving into the technical specifics of the new software platform. And the auditor's eyes, he's like this. What am I even thinking? I am only thinking about my materiality thresholds. That's all I am concerned about right now in the planning meeting. And the HR person, he is waiting to talk about all the timelines, and there is no way you find a way out. And the meeting becomes a series of monologues. One department is talking, you are cutting him out. The second department is talking, and there is no real conversation, but everyone waiting for their turn to talk. So collaboration almost feels impossible because everyone is in the meeting for a different reason. So, what's the challenge here? How to keep a multi department meeting focused? Because this meeting feels very fragmented and very inefficient. For this, we use a technique which is called the segmenting, the segmented agenda. So we stop treating the meeting as a one big conversation and we break it into focused, outcome driven segments for each stakeholder group. Do you understand what I said? So we are not treating the meeting as one big chunk. We are going to be treating it as a segmented agenda, segmented but overlapping. Say segment one, the core audit team topic. What topic you can finalize for them is that you need to finalize the top three financial statement risk areas. And as a result, your outcome will be a confirmed list of high risk accounts. And the IT and the HR folks are mostly listening here because they, this is setting context for their work. They have nothing to contribute in this. Then comes the turn of the IT risk manager. That's the segment number two, the how part. Now, the IT risk manager, what he will do? Now, for each high risk area, what are the key IT systems and controls that he needs to test? So, you see, instead of straight away diving, I have segmented the agenda that the what part, karna kya hai, that is being decided by the core audit team, and the HR and IT team has very less to say in this. Then the IT team comes in, and when the audit team has specified or highlighted the high risk areas, they tell us, the IT team tells us that what all will they be testing in these areas. So, this is a clear linkage from the financial risks to the IT audit procedures. And now the audit team is engaged, it's asking questions, and the HR person understands the technical skills which are required, and it also gets an understanding that since these are the high risk areas, if there are 10 areas, you need a bigger team. If there are fewer areas, you need a smaller team. So the HR team is also getting a hang of what the audit assignment is going to be like. Then is the segment three, the who and the when, where the HR representative he will take part, and based on the agreed risk, procedures, what is the preliminary staffing plan, and what's the timeline when the resources would get freed up. So, a draft allocation of team members and the key milestones is made. So, everyone now has a stake in this conversation and it finalizes the execution plan. But do you know why it worked? It worked because it respects everyone's time. People know that it's my segment and I can tune in more intently instead of just jumping in random conversations. It also creates focus because each segment has a clear owner. The what is owned by the core audit team, The how is owned by the how is owned by the IT team, and who and when is owned by the HR manager. So there is a clear focus on who is going to take care of what. And it also brings in integration. The segments, they are built on each other. So there has to be a logical flow from what to how, and how to the who and when. So instead of just silos, you build a bridge, you see, that you are creating a flowing linkage from the audit team. So the rule is that don't mix the segments. When you have diverse stakeholders, don't try to have one conversation. Design a meeting that is a series of connected and focused conversations, and this turns a chaotic crowd into a coordinated team. And that is how you build a truly powerful and integrated audit plan. So, by the segmenting of the agenda, we bring order to the multiple stakeholders, and it becomes real when someone takes ownership and executes it. The second way to handling a diverse stakeholder meeting is to pre-read to reduce the explanation. So the audit manager, he has a design set of what are the risk areas that are there. Now he may be identifying the high risk areas before the meeting itself. So what he can do is he can circulate his high risk areas to the IT manager so that there is scope. There is scope for him to explore that what are the testings that he is going to undertake for these risk areas, and based on that the audit team can give their comments. So if you pre-read, it helps to reduce the explanations. The third one is color coded conversation zones. So this is a very effective method when you color code the conversation zones. So if you have an agenda, now there may be an agenda which requires a discussion or a debate, color it red. There may be an agenda which requires you to simply take a decision without much of a debating. So you practically have to agree on it, but it requires a real time decision making. So for that, a meeting is required. So you code it green. That's how you convert a multiple stakeholder meeting into an effective one. There are also the meetings where no one is taking ownership. The meeting ends, the decisions are on the whiteboard. The WWW, what, who, when, is written there. But the people file out. And there's an unspoken question which is hanging out in the air. So, who is actually going to do that? The result? The task gets added to everyone's to do list, which means it's not on anybody's priority list. And the work is falling through the cracks. And a week later, when you come back for the meeting and you ask that why nothing has moved, the core challenge, that who was going to move it, is there. How can you assign responsibility without force pushing work to the most willing person? It's a big challenge, especially when you know that everyone is already stretched. So, this isn't about command or control, it's about creating a system of clear collaborative commitment. So, here are a few simple techniques that can actually make a lot of difference. You must name the person who's responsible before ending the meeting, not the team, but the person responsible for every single action item that's there on the list. You can't name an owner, then the task is not real. That task is not going to be finishing, it will just be an idea. Second is, instead of assigning, just ask that who is best placed to take the first step. So it frames it as a logical choice. So you're not hopifying it on anyone. And it's like a self select based on their skills and current workload. Third is try the capacity cards. So before assigning tasks, do a quick round. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your current bandwidth? So this creates visibility. If someone is a 2, maybe they shouldn't take the lead on a major new task. So this prevents silent resentment and burnout because it's coming out from their mouth itself. And finally, the one line summary. from each person on what they are committing to. So before they end the room, you say, "Hi, Onam, I'm committing to drafting the client email by Wednesday. This looks so real. This looks so verbal." So it's a psychological commitment to what they are going to do. So a vague task is converted into a personal promise. So these techniques they help us to move from vague assumptions to a culture of clear commitments. So quickly, what have we learned till now? The different scenarios. We talked about the never ending meeting, the meeting that never ends, and the person is speaking on and on and on. There are digressions, there's over explaining, and there's no focus. What do you do in that case? You have the parking lot technique. You park the ideas. Respectfully, you ask them to park the ideas. And at the end of the meeting, you actually come back to the parking lot, have a quick discussion. And in case those topics really had merit, you discuss them in a separate meeting or they grab the attention of an email. What else do? You have the decision tracker on the whiteboard, the discuss versus the decision. So how do you convert a topic of discussion into a decision when you visually write it on a visual board? It creates a lot of impact. The second thing that we discuss, the boss has spoken, he has given his decision. How do you step in? Upward communication. It's shut down. You need to have a respectful rewind. Just build on what he said, add to the context. Even though he has said something, don't contradict, add to the context. Second way to take care of the situation, have a meeting round robin. Meeting round robin, where you will hear one insight from everyone. You will ask what's their take on that matter. You have any insight, you feel there's a particular risk, something which needs to be in the knowledge of everyone. You can ask them in a round robin. And this should be a standard practice in the organization. It creates a culture of speaking up even among the juniors or those who are new to the organization. That's scenario number two. Scenario number three, the silent junior, the junior who never speaks, or the person who's new in the organization, but he may be a data mine, a mine which can explode, or a mine which can become a mine which can become a destruction. So, whatever the data that person has, it can be very critical to you. So, how do you get that person to talk? You become the leader with humility. You create a safe space, an environment where that junior feels respected and feels open to talk. You create that kind of environment. And third and second way to deal with this situation, you have specific questions that where could we get stuck? Specific questions you're asking them that where could we get stuck? What is your perspective on this? What do you think we should be improving? So open-ended questions, but specific questions, which give them a safe space. Then we talked about a scenario where there were too many stakeholders. It was fragmented, it was sliced, and there was inefficient decision making. So you follow the segmented agenda, or you can even take the color coded agenda for the decision areas and the discussion area. And last, we talked about the scenario where no one is taking ownership. So decisions are made, but nothing is happening. So what do? Name the single owner before ending. You have the capacity cards to ask them that tell us your bandwidth on a scale of 1 to 5. You can even ask them for a one line summary of what they are committing to after this meeting. But everything given and said, how you're actually going to implement these rules as a team member. So, master the one thing rule after every meeting. What is the one action that I own? And by when should I be doing? You can also start with the respectful rewind team. So practice adding your perspective by building onto other ideas. It will make you feel part of the team and it will help you bring out your superpower, your unique perspective on that topic. Next, as a team member, become a facilitator and not a participant. Gently help the leader by suggesting a parking lot for off topic ideas, or you can even suggest a round robin. So, even if you're a team member, try to become a facilitator of good team meetings. Lastly, Manage your capacity. So be honest in pre-meeting chats if you are at full capacity. So this helps the leaders to get the tasks done more realistically. So to start off with having good productive team meetings, you can follow any of these four things. On the contrary, as a leader, how do you implement how do you implement being the person who's pulling off good team meetings? You must champion the WWW model. What, when, who, and mandate that every meeting ends with a recap on what was decided, who owns it, and when is it done. And send it in the meeting summary as well. The second thing you can start doing is create safety with these questions that where could we get stuck? What's unclear? What support do you need? Now, these specific questions are very psychologically designed. So, in the next meeting, explicitly ask them from your team. Lastly, you can conduct a 5-minute retrospective. End a key meeting by asking that what worked well in this meet and what happened that we can improve. So it's like a feedback. You have a first-hand feedback from your meeting to know that where was the meeting actually going? Was the team with you in the meeting in spite of all the efforts that it took? So these are all the ways you can start building good team meetings, and they don't have to be done all in one go. Start picking one every week, because I'm sure you have a lot of meetings every week. Even if you pick up one thing and start mastering it for the week, by the end of a month, you'll be pretty good at pulling off a meeting as a team leader and as a team member as well. So that's all from myself on mastering the art of team meetings. We can get connect on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn QR code.
Uh, Ma'am, shall we proceed with the conclusion? Because I don't have any questions.
Okay, if you don't have any question. So mastering the art of team meetings is something which we all need to do on a regular basis, because, like I said, it consumes a lot of time of our everyday routine. The ROI of every meeting, if you start calculating that, you will understand that every meeting can either be expensive, it can either lead to draining down the money, or on the other hand, it can turn out to be a real value churner. So, how you approach a meeting as a leader and as a team member can vary. But understand one thing: if both the participants, the one who is pulling off the meeting and the one who's party to the meeting, if they both are committed to making a team meeting very successful, they first need to understand that they are pitching in their hours. So once you understand that ROI formula, it sticks with you, that every hour burnt or every minute burnt, if I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm not working. So this is Peter Drucker, who's a very famous management advisor. He says you are either meeting or you're working. It cannot be both. So it's so crystal clear that if you are coming for a meeting, you have put the work that you had in hand off. You're not working. So it's very imperative that you make your meeting productive, because you have delayed the work that had been assigned to you. So take meetings as a facilitator of your work. If you have a doubt, as a junior, if you have a doubt, ask them. If your senior is not giving you space, we talked about the respectful rewind technique. If your senior is not giving you space, don't contradict him. Just respectfully add whatever you want to say and create a space for yourself. Because a junior who's not speaking, he is not remembered by anyone. So if you are new to an organization and you want to make space for yourself, you need to bring real value to the meetings. And how do you bring real value to the meetings? You are the ones who are actually working with the client. So if you bring those real insights from the client, to the meetings in a very structured manner, in a very respectful manner, you will be heard by the leadership, provided those thoughts are directly leading to value creation. And as a team leader, you have a different set of responsibilities. So, the points that I talked about, the WWW, the what, when, who model, it works beautifully. Why? Because once the agenda was chalked out, you came out with certain decisions at the end of the meeting. A meeting turns into action. The execution part, the conversion part, the decisions of the meeting, they need to be converted into real action. And how do you do that? When you follow the what, when, who model. That what are we supposed to do? Who is supposed to do that? And by when is it supposed to be done? So the what, when, the WWW model, it makes summarizes the whole meeting and it sets out the blueprint for your team on how to go forward with all the agendas that were discussed. Secondly, as a facilitator, you must follow the round robin techniques. So, two techniques for both, which are the first go to things. For the junior, I talked about the respectful rewind, and secondly, bringing in value, real value from their client. On the opposite side, for the leader, one, the WWW, and secondly, the round robin technique. So these techniques, these help to eliminate a lot of problems, a lot of reasons why meetings fail. So if a leader and a team they are following these, the teams are bound to be the team meetings are bound to be effective, and these rules are equally effective for physical as well as for virtual meetings. So very warm thank you for all of you to all of you for attending this webcast. I hope this tries to bring a change in the culture that you create in your organization, because nobody can grow alone. You need a whole team with you. And to grow a whole team, you need to give them the right space as a leader. And you alone can also not grow. You need an organization to grow. So you must be a valuable part of the team. So, taking both these angles, try to give your best to the team meetings to make your participation noticed and to value the team that you have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Millie.
Ma'am, it was a very well articulated session. How to take meetings, how to be visible. It's more important when you are in a junior position. It's very important to be visible, as you have well put. So, thank you for all the pointers. I hope everyone who has attended this webinar has noted those pointers. Now, to conclude this session, it has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful webcast on mastering team meetings, a skillful path to collaboration and results, organized by the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICI). On behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICI), we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, CA Onam Agrawal, and on her enlightening session. A wide round of applause and thanks to the organizers, Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICI), our today's speaker, CEO Onam Agrawal, and other stakeholders who made this webcast a memorable one. Finally, we would like to thank all of you present here and helping us make this webcast a grand success. Thank you, one and all.